Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome back to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. We once again have as a special guest Billy Broussard. He's been on many times. I'm going to explain why Mr. Broussard is on. But at this point, you should have watched the original Chris Nakamoto WBRZ feature on Justin Chasson, aka Stalekracker, and the incident that he was involved with on the July 4th weekend of 2022. And also the little 1 minute and 30-second video of Mr. George Harper, the attorney for state police, saying, quote, it's in light of potential protracted litigation, unquote, we felt it was best to rescind his termination, reinstate him at a cost of $180,000 to taxpayers. Those are your bare facts. The reason Mr. Broussard is here joining us today is because many of you may have seen he made public comment at the last State Police Commission meeting. He was there. He observed it firsthand. And Mr. Broussard and I are going to engage in kind of a little informal point-counterpoint as we progress through this because I have some pretty strong feelings that were echoed by another retired state trooper. I have called around and gotten some feedback about this reinstatement, and we'll be providing that to them as we go along. But I want to start out by letting Mr. Broussard provide his take on the matter. He was there. So Mr. Broussard, why don't you go ahead and chime in about what you thought? You were there at State Police Commission meeting when this reinstatement took place. So.
Yes, I mean, that day, I remember us talking beforehand, you said, okay, this may take some time.
Correct, because if it had been a full-blown hearing, I can tell you it would have been probably 4 or 5 hours.
Right, and within no time flat, I mean, they went up, they spoke for just a couple moments, and it was like, it was over that quick. But I also was sitting in the middle of the room and I was facing, I could see the chairman, Simeon.
Udo Simeon, correct.
Mm-hmm. And I was watching his body language and listening to the way he was saying it, and I have, heard, making it clear in the past that he is an attorney, apparently a very smart attorney, and I'm watching his body language and I'm watching what he's saying to the attorney. I think he brought out things like, oh, it's your first time here, almost like a joke, like you just in and out that quick.
Yeah, well, this was a piece of cake.
Right.
And he even said, not to interrupt you, but you're making a good point. He said, look, if you come back, don't expect it to be so easy. And he said, okay, I won't. And he said, just ask Mr. Burns. Yeah. So yeah, your point is well taken that this was kind of a shockingly uneventful and very, 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 very little discussion of any kind.
Right. So, yeah, so it was that quick because I thought I was going to be sitting there for a couple hours, and in no time flat, it was that particular matter was over. But it was so that's when when you call me after the fact, telling me what you had after through your public records request, which I know you
right
to expound on. But at that time, we just knew like. Well, whatever happened there was just a real quick matter. They're just, because actually after the meeting, it's like, well, I thought that was supposed to take, a lot more time than that. So, and it was, that's pretty much all that was said after that until you called me, how much time after you got the public records request, and then you can explain what you had read. And I didn't read what you saw in the public records request.
Right, and we're going to be providing that to the audience. So let me briefly say the cost to the taxpayers to do this reinstatement is, and we're going to provide the little spreadsheet segment from state police, it's not my word, it's theirs, $128,000 is the cost to us to reinstate, us, when I say us, I mean taxpayers, to reinstate Trooper Stalekracker, Justin Chasson. I'm going to call him Stalekracker because apparently that's what everybody knows him by, that's what he prefers. He's built up a huge social media following on that, so I will use Stalekracker. But as one retired state trooper said, well, it's actually larger than that because he will have all of his annual leave reinstated beyond the 300 hours that he was paid for at his termination. Now, what they did, and we're going to provide the one-page relevant part of the settlement agreement. They reduced the termination down to 240-hour suspension, and you can click on the document and see the itemization of the 240 hours. Now, with regard to Mr. Harper's comment about And that's the reason we only gave a 1:30 video. That's all that's really necessary. That's the meat of it. With regard to his comment that he believes this, or the state police decided this was preferable to, and I quote, potential protracted litigation, unquote. I will note the fact that the stipulation agreement was drafted on January the 4th. Trooper Stalekracker had been terminated on January the 6th of the preceding year. So clearly you're coming up against the 2-year prescription period when this was decided the best path to go down. And so I would not be surprised for his attorney, who's, as Mr. Simeon pointed out, has never appeared before the commission before, ever. But it would not surprise me at all for him to have pre-drafted a lawsuit and said that, look, you know, we're up against the deadline and we may have to very well file this. That's just speculation. I do not know that. All I can say is that in my opinion, if it would have been a defamation lawsuit, and I'm not saying it was, it never would have gotten off the ground. And I believe that through you, we have given a PhD level course on Code of Civil Procedure 971. We have talked about it ad nauseum, and I believe that state police that's my opinion, could have most certainly asserted that and recovered their own attorney's fees from Trooper Stalekracker. That is my thought. Now, however, I want to say this, and then I'm going to go back to you, Mr. Broussard. I want to say this. I believe that if this hearing had gone forward, it's my personal opinion that the commission likely would have upheld the termination. That's just my personal opinion. That would have instantly created a potential problem, because this same commission, not long back, voted to reinstate Sheldon Perkins, a former trooper whom, and we're going to give the link for his hearing, there was body cam video showing that he was drunk off his posterior on highway, not on a river, on the highway, pulled over by 2 underlings. He was belligerent with them. He threatened them. It's inexcusable that State Police Commission reinstated him. I will point out Sheldon Perkins was black. And we do know that there's been enormous racial strife. There have been allegations made against former Colonel Davis that he has said publicly that LSP is too white. So I'm saying that if the commission ultimately had denied the reinstatement and upheld the discipline, perhaps that was the litigation that would have been referenced, because I'm virtually certain, I know I learned in real estate school, you have a longer period for filing a discrimination complaint. We already know that John Stelly, former lieutenant, has filed a discrimination suit. We've given updates on it. So while we're not going to know what George Harper meant when he says potential protracted litigation, quote unquote, those are the scenarios that come to my mind. Why don't you go ahead and pick it back up and give any thoughts you may have about, you know, what litigation may have prompted LSP's decision to do this, because that's the only reason it was given.
Well, I would agree that my opinion would also be that his attorney, Stalekracker's attorney, probably had a drafted lawsuit put together and put that before state police. And I believe that also there's more to the story than what you received in your public records request. And I think maybe whatever this information was probably, if there was a drafted lawsuit, it was probably in there that they were going to, you know, bring to the table, not just what you've seen in your public records request. And I truly believe that some information may have been discussed verbally. Mm-hmm. So you might never know finding through a public records request, through meetings, discussions. You know, sometimes people have knowledge. Hodges, you know, probably had the knowledge. I mean, we just had this campaign with, you know, attorney Jeff Landry. He personally, too, in his travels may have heard, and, you know, more to this story involving Stalekracker. I mean, Stalekracker's all over the internet, so a lot of times elected officials, they, you know, bump into these guys that are these internet guys that are, all over the internet. So I just truly believe that there's more to that story. They probably have more evidence, information, that other people's fingerprints on it, whatever. So I believe there's just more to that story involving that.
Well, very good, and I assume by that you don't really take exception to Colonel Hodges' decision here, because basically that's the call. That's who makes the call about reinstating.
No, I think Hodges is the person. Like I said before, I have a lot of faith in him. I had, in that meeting when I went up before the committee and spoke. Hodges was there, and I didn't, mention a lot of different people's names, but I had a meeting with Hodges last year about another matter I was dealing with, and I have to say, and when you meet someone face to face and discuss matters like I was discussing, I have to say I have a lot of faith in him. I really do. He has a way about him that you can tell that he has a heart. He's not all about. I truly believe that he's just going to go in there and it's going to be the same old way it's been in the past. And I'm not blaming Davis either. It's been a problem. It's been a serious problem. I mean, for quite some time at State Police, and I have a lot of faith in him, especially after having the meeting with him. That I think he's doing the right thing, but he has his hand full on moving forward to prevent these type of matters from even happening in the first place, involving situations like Stalekracker. So.
Well, and let me just say this: in being largely supportive of Colonel Hodges, even in this decision, you certainly have company. As I said, I want to incorporate what two retired troopers gave me feedback on this. Both of whom I have absolutely tremendous respect for. I think they both served incredibly honorably with State Police. And as I said, you're not alone. And I'm just going to read just a little bit of what one of the retired troopers had to say, not revealing his identity, nor will I reveal the other retired trooper's identity. But he said, now we're going to be providing the termination letter in full. It's 12 or 14 pages, quite lengthy, that Davis drafted in terminating Trooper Stalekracker. And he said, never in there does it say how Chasson was identified as a trooper. Passengers in Boat 2 said they went to Lake Barrett to see the sunset. That tells me they were navigating in poor light conditions. Never in the report does it note running lights were used on either boat. If it was after sunset, how could they see Boat 2 passengers waving their arms? I'm thinking that the LDWF, that's Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, report could have been added along with any report from the Assumption Parish Sheriff's Office in the documentations. It seems, now this is what I touched on earlier, it seems as if Davis was handing out harsher punishment to white troopers over black. I hate to bring race into it, but Davis himself said that the department was too white. We know that. He has said it openly. It's no secret. And there was tremendous undertows of anger amongst white troopers. You're not seeing that reported in the mainstream media. I have not hesitated to report it because it is palpable and it's been out there and it remains. So his point is well taken in that regard. And he says, I'm back resuming now in his commentary, I'm glad the new colonel is clearing the books and seeing that far too harsh a punishment has been handed out. And that he had subsequent time to contemplate a little more and sent me a follow-up, and he said, why would Davis fire someone who was a passenger on a boat and the other party only had minor injuries? Note that there were no medical reports submitted in the occupants of Boat 2 in the report. When you have, and he makes a good point here, when you have two troopers who were operating vehicles that killed, he puts in all caps, people, and they were not fired. It's kind of tough to argue that point. Something just does not add up here. I'd like to see the IA report on those fatal accidents. Well, one of them, he clearly is referencing Colonel Reeves's son, Caleb Reeves, who is certainly still on the force. And yet there were two young black children whom he rear-ended. We're not going to go into all that, but he makes some valid points. At this time, I do want to state the other trooper that I relied upon for some guidance in trying to produce this feature is emphatic, and I do mean emphatic. He is very upset at what has happened here. He believes it's inexcusable, and he has made the quote that there is, I'm quoting him now, there is no criminal act nor other act of misconduct that ultimately is not going to be richly rewarded when you're a state police trooper. And I do want to say one thing, and then I'll turn it back over to you, and then we'll wrap it up. Colonel Davis, in his early days as being colonel, he appeared before the commission. Eula Simeon, you mentioned him earlier, had said, well, we've got to treat a trooper differently if he only engages in shoplifting versus armed robbery. And I was kind of taken aback by that, and so was Colonel Davis. And we're going to provide his video clip where he said, look, when John Q. Public is out there, if they engage in shoplifting, well, they know there's going to be severe ramifications. They'll lose their job, and they don't have all of these rights that troopers have. So the public is getting a perception that police officers are being treated special. And I said then that we concurred with his remarks. I did then, I do now. And the other retired trooper said, we need to reach a point to where each case is evaluated based on the facts, and you don't have to worry about underlying toes of whether somebody is black, white, male, female. Everybody is treated the same. Now, we've had obviously past instances where that was not the case, and I liken it to being a seesaw. You know, okay, this administration's in, so this race has problems. Okay, a new administration's in, so now this race has problems. But on that seesaw, and Billy's seeing me do my arms back and up and down, and he's managed to keep a straight face. The problem is, no matter whose end of the seesaw is down, it's clanging the public on the head. Yeah. And what's happening is we are getting a worse and worse and worse state police force. That's what infuriates me personally. So that was my contribution of the other two troopers and my own little comment. We're going to turn it back over to Mr. Broussard.
I have to say, one of the worst things you can do is have a run-in with a state trooper. I've had those run-ins, and to this day, I'm doing everything I can to hopefully one day be able to shake hands and be friends, even if possible. But I will say, you bump heads with a state trooper, they have some political pull, trust me. And
you've seen it firsthand.
I'm dealing with it. I'm in a lawsuit with the parish because it all started with a trooper that didn't want my truck driving in the front of his house.
And Brian, he said, don't drive down my road, even though it's a public road.
And look, I hope one day me and the gentleman can shake hands and put it behind us. But it doesn't change the fact that, you know, I'm out probably $40,000 so far in a litigation just because he can walk into a parish president's office in 5 minutes, snap his fingers and want something done, even though other people have complained about something and said, look, Mr. Broussard's well within his rights to do what he's doing. So, but if a state trooper, you know, you bump heads with them, they can pull some strings and make something happen. And so I have to give them credit for that, no, they do have, it's not, the same rules don't apply. Period. They don't, because I've witnessed that. I will say about the racial situation, I have to say something.
Sure.
I have watched, you know, the chief of staff that was under Davis, which was
Chavez
Cameron. You know, in that testimony that was before, was it a Senate committee?
Yeah, no, that was a House committee and special committee investigating Ronald Reagan.
And I will say, I think that they were standing up for
John Clary
at that time. So I have to say, I don't think, you know, the harsher punishments, you know, maybe so, maybe not. But I will say, I watched, you know, him hand the gentleman that was testifying. Actually, who was the guy that was actually?
Kenny Van Buren.
So, you know, Cameron Chavez was handing them the documents, and this information was actually information that should have cleared Clary, even though after that fact he gets indicted. So I have to say, you know, I met these gentlemen face to face and shook hands with Cameron Chavez and you know, Colonel Davis at the time. I have a lot of respect for him also, and so I have to say, you know, the racial things, yeah, I'm sure it exists, and there's issues.
Oh, it exists. Trust me, I got way too much feedback.
Well, I don't have all the feedback that
Make
you
no
get.
mistake, it exists.
I don't have all the,
Yeah, you
talk to
don't,
these
and
guys that
I keep people's identity confidential for obvious reasons.
But I have seen them, and just to say the issues I was having with the trooper. Matter of fact, it was Cayman Chavez. He said one day I was talking to him about it. He goes, "You haven't been having any problems, huh? No one's bothered you." I said, "Since this particular date, right?" I said, "Yeah, you're right about that." He goes, "Okay." And so I said, "Well, thank God I got what I wanted."
You got what you wanted in terms of prospectively, but you
still fighting it. But the truth of the matter, at least I was left alone at that point. There was no further issues, and I believe he was like he helped me with that. So. I respect them, the things that they did for me in regards to that. So the racial issues, I mean, you hear more about it than me. And
do I ever?
So yeah, so hopefully one day everybody will be treated equal when it comes down to that. But regardless of what color you are, if you're a trooper, you don't want to have a run-in with a trooper. I don't care.
If you're a member of the public, you mean you don't want to have a run-in.
If you're a member of the public and you have a bump-in with a state trooper,
watch out.
Watch out, because matter of fact, get your phone out and start recording yourself. Because you're gonna need the evidence to help clear your own name, because they're a force to be tangled.
A force to be reckoned with.
Yes, exactly.
Alrighty, folks. Well, those are the facts as best I'm able to relay them. I want to thank sincerely the two retired troopers for the sentiments that they gave me, even though they were not on the same page. That is an understatement. But that happens. People have different perspectives on things, and we're going to leave it for the public to make a decision if LSP made the right choice here. I stated my sentiments about this whole mess and the whole Sheldon Perkins situation, and what contributing factors. You'll have to do more, just speculate the same way I did as to what the quote potential prospective litigation unquote may have referenced. I will say this: I don't like the idea of just caving to potential prospective litigation unquote. I believe it opens the door for any future trooper to make that similar type threat, which I don't like. I don't like being on the receiving end of threats, and I think clearly that's what happened here, whether it be from the trooper or perhaps even another party. But I don't like caving to litigation threats if it means potentially doing the wrong thing.
Well, I will say this: I wouldn't doubt moving forward in the future, Hodges is going to have Stalekracker on a short leash.
Well, I would hope he would have enough common sense to put himself on a short leash, because quite frankly, in my opinion, he is extremely fortunate. That's my opinion. I think many would share it. However, there are others that, for reasons that I've largely gone into, believe that Colonel Hodges made the right move here, and I feel obligated to express those sentiments, because I know it's not just one or two who feel that way, and I think it's largely residual anger over the prior LSP colonel. But it is what it is. And I'm just hoping we can have a more respectable Louisiana State Police.
We have to pray for our state troopers. I mean, I love and pray for our state troopers. I mean, every time we go to church, we always pray for our people that protect us, state troopers. So you hate to have a run-in with them, but at the same time, they go through a lot. So we have to continue to pray for them. And
all righty, folks, that's a wrap. I do thank you, Mr. Broussard, for being willing to come on and engage in a very informal. It's not like you and I got into an arm wrestling match over all this, but I appreciate your perspective and being willing to make this presentation a little easier on me. So folks, it's up to you. You can be the judge. We've tried to lay as much of the evidence out there, or as much of the material as possible. And we want to thank you for the time you've taken to watch this and look at the other two short videos. And we look forward to bringing you yet another feature very, very soon. Thank you so much.